If we take a break, then I'll tag people.
You say, I'll readjust fire.
I'll readjust. Yep. Let me take this Coke because
No, you can sit there. You can sit
we can't
there.
afford to pay them.
No, you're. Oh. My producer is very funny.
Okay. Okay.
He's hilarious.
I didn't see that coming. Are we on?
Okay. Welcome to Mind of a Man. I'm your host, Elder Jones, and my co-host here, Tobie
Famusipe.
We want to say thank you. We were just laughing at our producer because he caught us off guard while we were talking, and he didn't even really let us know that we were live.
That we were on live.
So welcome, my brothers and my sisters. Last time we were talking about the 5 key areas, and my brother over here, I won't put you on the spot about the 5 key areas, but this is the 5 key areas. Because the last time he was here trying to struggle with that one that he could not figure out, and I won't do my brother like that. Just
I tried to hold my own, everyone.
Yeah, he does. But 5 key areas. I'm laughing, but I hopefully I won't forget because I try to store up a whole lot of information.
Right.
But it was spiritual, emotional, financial, professional, and now I'm missing one.
Financial, emotional,
spiritual, and relational.
Relations.
How can I forget that? Because this is all about relation. So those are 5 key areas, and then those 5 key areas, they are critical areas in your life. And a lot of times, we who call ourselves Christian always gives ourselves a nice high five, right? Especially in spiritual.
That's right.
Especially in spiritual. We like to think that we're a 5 all the time, rating from 1 to 5, and 5 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. So we like to think that we are. But one of the subjects we're going to talk about is that area that a lot of men don't discuss. And it's an area that affects us. I would probably say it's one of the key area that affects all other areas, believe it or not. It is the key area that affects all the other areas. And this topic for the day is, I put in the subjects the last time I was here. Do you feel that, or is that just me?
Did you feel that, or was it just me?
Yeah. Do you feel that, or is that just me? And the subject line for that was this: emotions. Do men really cry? I mean, do men? I'm gonna say a few things, but emotions having a way to affect our moods and our behavior. And we don't discuss it. and as I was sitting at my desk, and I thought about something that was so ironic that men say, who are not married, girlfriend or spouse. This is what we say: man, why women gotta always be so emotional about everything?
And you know, man,
and why they always got so many mood swings?
Mood swings.
So is it that time of the month? They say stuff. We say stuff like that, sisters, ladies. We really do. And I just wanted to say, So I sat back in my chair, and I said, do men act that way? Do men really get emotional and moody? And then I had to examine myself. And as I examined myself, I was like, wow, is the pot calling the kettle black? Am I really? I mean, check it out, my brothers. I know we don't want to admit, that we have these emotions that affect other areas. Remember the 5 critical areas I just told you. Emotions have a way affecting every single one of the other areas. It really does. It affects your spiritual, your attitude in the body of Christ really matters. I mean, it really affects that and how you treat others. Relations, you know, your relationship with one another and to others, really, if you're very emotional and in those emotions, if you happen to be angry or you're upset in that relationship or something got set off, I will tell you that it's going to manifest itself in that behavior.
Yep.
It really will, especially when someone have wronged you and you're doing right by them.
Mm-hmm.
It can be a significant other or a spouse or a wife or a girlfriend or, let it be a family member.
Mm.
Then you might let them have it with both barrels. Or it can be children or adult children that really set you off. And you're going to tell them about themselves. And some of us don't do it in a Christ-like way. But emotions have a way to affect every single area of your life. If you're upset, I've seen where my sisters falling apart and they go on a spending spree because they are emotionally depressed. Or we have that part where in our profession that we're angry because someone is either taking too much of the credit or are not doing their fair share of the work. And you'll start seeing it in somebody else work in the profession, and then it comes out in the workplace. So when I say emotions have a way of affecting all 5 of those critical areas, it is critical that we bring up this subject because it's relevant. It's really relevant in this day and time. When I remember that cliche when I first heard it, one of my adult children used it. It was like, I feel some type of way. And I'm like,
I feel some type of way.
Hold on. What do you mean by that? Because I'm a military man, so I want to know. I want to get to the core of what you're trying to say.
Be specific.
Yeah, I need you to explain. So I said I was going to those 5 critical areas what we talked about last week. I mean, the last time we were here. And, being the way that the world is right now, competitive. And I think a lot of times, even now, I'm starting to see a lot of people are insecure in who they are. And when they get insecure, they start acting a certain way. And we used to say, something's not right. Why? Because their emotions are affecting their behavior. Do you want to chime in?
And their judgment.
And their judgment.
And their judgment.
Do you want to chime in before we go all in?
Emotions, I do believe we as men, we do get emotional. But when we show that emotion, that raw emotion, I mean, from my standpoint, you show the emotion either with certain people in your life. Maybe your spouse, your wife, or
what they supposed to see,
or your mom,
they
or your mom.
As they say, they supposed to know. They're supposed to peep the game.
They're supposed to peep.
Yeah.
But not most men don't show emotions like that publicly.
I think since we said that,
Right.
I think women are up on the game because they know the right button to push. They know the right thing to say to encourage you. Or some people say they know how to stroke your ego. They know the right things to do at the right time. So I think they see the vast potential in you that really can show the different types of emotions. That's gonna prompt what they want to see. So that's why I say moms, that's that emotional type. They supposed, I believe they supposed to. That's that nurturing care that God has given them. That's like, moms know exactly what to say. They know when dad's not there. They know exactly what to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's that nurturing part.
Mm-hmm.
Well, man, let's dive in. I told y'all I was gonna say something, be transparent. That's what I should say. Be transparent. I'm gonna be transparent about me. I would ask my producer over there. He's on his phone, but he's gonna play that off, and he's gonna act like, hey, do real, Courtney, do real men cry? They don't cry. My producer say real men don't cry. they don't break down.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
No emotion. So so
if you don't show any kind of tear or something in your life, in my opinion, I just think you're dead on the inside.
So my producer, he said
he said he don't.
He said he's hardcore.
He just don't.
He's hardcore. He's not breaking.
Nah.
So I said I was gonna be transparent. So check this out, my brothers and sisters. Many, many decades ago, and right now I'm only 21. But I was dating a young lady, and I thought I was in love. And we're gonna cut this real to the measure of where it needs to go.
Okay.
I dated her for a while, and she's like, this is it. Emotionally, when you can get broken in such a way that heartache stops you from even function, making a living, that your supervisors can see that, and everyone else can see it.
Right.
And I did shed some tears. I did shed tears. So men are emotional. My sisters, they are emotional, and I think for a better, they have an ego that can easily be cracked, easily, because men need that affirmation. That's what a lot of times we get from not only our mothers, for those mothers who've been great mothers, but for men or for dads, we need that affirmation to continue on for the build-up. But I wanted to use me as an example because a lot of men, I won't say a lot of people, a lot of us men who don't want to mention anything about being broken or actually crying,
Weakness. A lot of men think it's a form of.
I can't even take that as.
Most men out there feel like it's a form of weakness.
How did we get
when they, it's like crying is for little girls or women, but I personally feel like when you drop tears or you're in tears, that's part of being human.
Okay.
You're human. Okay. Like our producer said, he don't cry, which I don't. I love him dearly, but I don't agree.
Yeah, I can tell he done got broken. He's
been broken, and he's heavily guarded.
Yeah.
He's heavily guarded. I'm not gonna let anybody make me cry again.
Yeah.
He has cried before, but he won't admit.
Right.
But he won't admit because now his guards are so up and it's tighter than Fort Knox. So it's like, I'm not gonna cry. You know what? You're not gonna break me. I've been broken once, and I'll be darned if I have to happen. If it happen again,
more than once.
I've been broken more than once. I've been broken even recently. So
ask me this.
Yeah.
How is it different in Western culture than the Eastern culture in Africa, in Nigeria?
Oh my God.
Africa. Yeah, I'm taking you there. I'm taking you
there.
there.
Okay. Now I come from I'm a man from two worlds. For those of you who don't know, I'm first generation American Nigerian, born here but raised in Nigeria, and the culture is vastly different. The contrast is huge. So I come from an area where we're trained not to cry. We're trained not to cry. Because God rest my father's soul. My dad is like, why are you crying? You're a man. You're not supposed to cry. And I'm like, well, how am I going to show my emotions to let people know that I'm hurt?
Right.
How? You have to take it in like a man. You can cry behind closed doors later if you want to. But my friend, don't cry in front of people. And I'm like, but that's part of being human.
Right.
And this goes from generation to generation. Now, women, kids, boys and girls, little boys and girls, they can cry all day.
Right.
But as you get into that teenage, adolescent age,
Yeah. Young adult age.
no, you better suck that up no matter what happened to you. Suck it up and move forward. They don't believe in crying because I come from a culture where crying is almost a form of weakness. Why are you crying? You are lazy. You are weak. And I'm like, how am I supposed to express my human side of myself?
Right.
The only time they will acknowledge is when you're angry.
When you're angry.
See, when you're angry, it's more receptive when you're angry
right.
than when you're crying.
Got it.
Okay, it's okay. You can be mad, you can be angry, but don't cry.
Don't cry.
Right. Yeah, and I'm like, it's almost a double standard in my opinion, I think.
So well, if I had to ask myself.
But in America, they'll say, man up.
Right.
Boy, put your big boy pants on and stop crying. Man up. Or man the bleep up. You know,
Yeah.
they know how to say it out there.
So my thing would be to them is, what does Jesus say about the matter? Now we read that he wept.
Mm-hmm.
He wept for Israel,
Mm-hmm.
for the body,
Mm-hmm.
even for Lazarus.
Mm-hmm.
So we know that he has cried.
Yeah.
And this is who we say is our King of Kings, Lord
Lord
of
of Lords.
All right. So if he can, why can't we?
Right.
Where did we get this emotion from where we are not allowed to release it?
This macho type demeanor that, men don't cry. No. I think that makes you more of a human being when you shed your emotions. But if you're going to shed your emotions, it has to be strategic.
It has to be strategic.
It has to be strategic.
Okay. All right.
Like you could be vulnerable and emotional with your spouses. That's okay.
Right.
Because that's part of your spouse getting to know who you are
Building?
as a human. Building.
Okay.
It's part of building, know who you are. And you, of course, your mama. Okay? And then your dad, your father will hug you, hug you and say, "Okay, son, let it out. It's okay. Let it out." I could bring it up in a quick example. You ever remember Will Smith? Remember the episode on the Fresh Prince when his father came? It's one of the most powerful scenes on television to today, where his father came out of nowhere, came to the house, and then all of a sudden, Will thought he was going to go with his dad, and his dad said, "No, you can't go with me."
Right.
And Will was hurt. He was upset. He was hurt. But Uncle Phil was there. My favorite TV dad was Uncle Phil.
Uncle
Phil. Yeah. Yep. Of course.
He's your favorite TV dad?
My favorite TV dad. I mean, him. Then it's James from Good Times, and James from Good Times. And there's another one. Bill, of course.
Bill.
Regretfully, Bill.
Yeah.
I said regretfully, but Bill. But that episode was so powerful.
Right.
It was the most powerful scenes on TV till today. It's at least among the top 5 or top 10 emotional scenes. Uncle Phil allowed Will to lash out because Will went through multiple emotions and then he let that out. I'm an actor, so I can relate to this. So he allowed those emotions to come out.
Right.
He was first excited when his dad came. That was one emotion. Happy and excited that he was going to go on a trucking trip with his dad.
Right.
And then his dad turns around and says, "No, you can't go."
Right.
And then he gets angry.
Right.
He said, "You know what? I don't need him. To hell with him. I don't need him. You know what? I'm going to go to college. I'm going to graduate. I'm gonna have kids. I'm gonna get married. I'm gonna have kids, and I'm gonna be a successful man. And I don't need him." And then the emotion changed. He started crying. He turned around. Uncle Phil was there, looking at him, and Uncle Phil's like, Uncle Phil grabbed him because he said the most powerful comments on statement on TV. How come he don't want me, man? And he was just broken, and he let everything out, and he was crying, and Uncle Phil grabbed him.
Well, you know, in
So
these
the point-
times, yeah,
Right. So the point I'm trying to make to circle back is, it's okay to show emotion as men, to show emotion with your loved ones, your inner circle.
Your inner circle.
Right, inner circle. Not publicly, because people's perceptions are different.
Always.
People's perceptions are different. Some people will say, okay, oh, he's weak. He's weak, man. He don't even know how to keep his emotions in check. Some people say, like I just said, he's only being human.
So that young lady who says, I want a strong man, but you don't want to see him crying because you look at it as he's being weak, but I need him to show some emotion, to show that he cares. So these two contrasts are coming from our current society.
Right.
What do you think about that?
Any woman who's telling or imposing that her man, she wants a strong man, but he don't have to cry, it's not being honest with
Let's
her.
not necessarily lose cry. Let's say show his vulnerability.
His vulnerability.
Right.
It's not being honest with herself. She's not being honest about being human.
Right.
She doesn't she doesn't understand what it's like to be human. See, I pick up my fiance a lot. See, my fiance, she'll tell you in a minute, I'm from zone 3. We don't cry, we this and that. But I've seen that vulnerable side of her, and I've seen that vulnerable side of her, and I'm like, honey, it's okay. Let it out.
Right.
It's okay. Let it out. She's seen my vulnerability recently, in recent days. She's seen my vulnerability. So it's any woman who says that, she doesn't want her man to show vulnerability, is not being honest with herself. It's either that or there's still issues, unresolved issues of herself.
Right.
And she doesn't want to see any vulnerability because she's been the rock of the family, or been going through a lot her whole life.
Right.
And now she's at a place now where she doesn't want to show any vulnerability, and the man she's with, she doesn't want the man to show vulnerability because she personally has issues that she has not faced and settled with.
Oh, okay.
To allow vulnerability. That's my thoughts.
That's your thoughts?
That's my thought.
Okay, let me read something to you.
Okay.
Emotions are how individuals deal with matters or situations they find personally significant. And I said, okay, so what's the difference between feelings and emotions? So I had to go in and dig a little deep. I said, okay, I feel a certain way, but I have these emotions. What are they? And so when I go in there and I looked and I said, oh, I need to go ahead and break this thing on down for us. Because emotions are a feeling situation, well, really, emotions are a feeling situation and psychological reaction. And what I mean by that is that when something happens, the emotion defines the feeling. And I said, wow. So if I get angry, right, that's the feeling. But whatever caused that, the emotion carries the feeling that says you're angry now because of this situation or because of the effect on your health. And these 5 emotions that affect your health can be happiness, sadness, anger, fear, and disgust. within those parameters, there are a whole lot of other feelings,
Mm-hmm.
but those are just your basic core
basic
ones,
core
right?
ones, yep.
That will affect your health. If someone stays angry long enough, it'll bring up stuff like high blood pressure,
Yep.
hypertension. You start affecting your health by all this negativity in your life will start doing something to your body.
Headaches, migraines.
Yeah, all of that. And same thing with fear. We will cause ourselves not to eat well, cowered somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
and just not live a very healthy, productive life. Not get enough air, not enough sunshine. Of course, sadness does the same thing. When you're gloomy long enough, no one wants to come around.
Come around.
Same thing, but
Alcohol.
yeah, leads to other things, and then we have
People
happiness.
go
of
to
course.
People go to alcohol, start drinking. They try to drink it away, but you can't drink it away because you're high. That you or people get high. People get high or start drinking, but remember they tend to forget what goes up is gonna come down.
Eventually, yeah,
And then guess what? That thing that you were trying to run away from,
yeah,
it's still there.
it's still there.
Mm-hmm. It's still there. It's still there.
So the reason why we brought up about emotions, because one thing we can do, we can control our emotions, our feelings. We have a say so in there.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to let certain people in our circumference that we know that we do not care for, or who have done these things, and I still feel a certain kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
There are things that we can do with our emotions to put us in a better mood.
Right.
There are certain types of music. You know, we watch people who get quality sleep by turning on what is it called? That the noise,
Calm.
calm
The
noise, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and listen to waterfalls and listen
Or
to
raindrops.
yeah, it causes you to have these pleasant emotions just to relax you. So we can do some things for our health and to take care of our health, but also to take care of us emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
Because no one wants to see someone be an emotional wreck,
Mm-hmm.
you know, with bad attitude. There's nothing worse than coming to work sometimes. I would say this. I wouldn't say there's nothing worse, because there's always something worse. But to see one of your coworkers come in just torn apart, just distraught. And it can be everything from maybe having a divorce, broken relationship, children who, Lord forbid, drugs or ran away from home, want to do their own thing, parents passing away, and just and come to work
Mm-hmm.
with a distraught attitude,
Right.
or an emotion. So those things we can help while we think there is no remedy, and it's
Right.
not just necessarily. There are those who really need professional help, who actually need real doctors, who actually really need
Mm-hmm.
medicine, because they're that far gone.
Mm-hmm.
But those doctors are there to get them back in an emotional working state. But I bring that up to say this next part is going to be pretty interesting. Well, my producer over here, he wouldn't answer our question.
He's not engaged today
Yeah,
like we were expecting that we usually
right.
do, people.
So he wants us to take a break, and we'll be back in 5.
a race when they say dinner's ready, right? Like you pushing each other out the way, right? But also part of that was on Sunday, you didn't eat all day because you knew where you were getting later, right? Growing up, watching my grandfather, who was just like this stoic man, seasoned and flipped meat, these greasy hands, this smock, and everyone's looking at him, right, for whatever it was that was coming off the grill. You get a brisket going, that smoke gets to going, your 16-year-old shows up, right? Like he sits next to you, he's waiting for that piece of meat, right? So it pulls you, those smells pull you in. That's hot.
So as a kid, what was your favorite dish that was made?
Fried chicken.
Like, was it something about that, or?
Well, we only had fried chicken on Sundays. It wasn't always a regular thing because when you had like home fried chicken, somebody had to kill the chicken the day before.
I was about to say.
Everything was prepped on Saturday night because you have to remember we're going back now to a stove that was started up with wood or coal.
Right. I used to request for you to make yeast rolls because I was like, this is amazing and so flavorful.
So I do mine, like Grandma didn't have, she had the hand mixer that she whipped around, and she would set it where the sun shined on it. Because so it always had to be made early enough that the sun could shine to raise up your rolls.
When we talk about the things that you grow up eating in the house, the one thing that I always loved was my mama's greens. And she took pride at making her son, her oldest boy, these greens. Well, then I met a woman. And fell in love with this woman. And it probably was due to some of those greens. And I think, I'm pretty sure the first thing I said when I took a bite, I think I looked you square in your face and I said, sincerely, these better than my mama greens.
The juices started to come out over here. I just want a couple of those.
Being able to set time aside for your family or your extended family is just hard to come by. And it gets harder the older you get. To be able to sit aside like a dedicated time to be able to say, hey, this is where we are, this is where we're gonna meet. Right. Bring everything that you have of yourself in this moment is great. And for us, the kids respond. It's something that they look forward to. We sing a made-up song called Who Won the Day? And sometimes you don't win the day. We got a 4-year-old who'll say, I didn't win my day, it was a rough day, this happened. But they know that this is a space that we are gonna share that.
Put butter on your hand.
Give me his plate. Well, I'm standing.
If somebody had a challenging day, or we know that something happened with someone, our table is where we discuss it, and we discuss it as a family. It gives people an opportunity to express themselves and their emotions and not feel like it's a bad thing. You started it trying to get more conversation at the table, and it really has opened that up. Who win the day?
We win the day.
Who win the day?
We win the day.
Who win the day?
We win the day.
Penelope, how'd you win your day?
I made rolls with my family.
What else?
I was watching TV all night.
Welcome back to Mind of a Man. Your host, Elder Jones, and my co-host, my brother Tobie. Now, when we left off, we were talking about emotions and feelings. So I went and did a little homework here, and this happened to do with some superheroes. And I said, you know, superheroes, they always have two identities.
Yeah.
You know, the one they work in an everyday world, and then their secret identity of which hero they are. So I'm going to give you three. And I want you
I think I know
emotionally
who they are.
to identify. He already know what it is.
I think I know who they are.
Look, he looked at my paper, so he said, So,
Yeah,
Huh?
bring me in.
so my producer's working on getting us a question here. But meanwhile, um,
I have a question.
go ahead, caller.
My question is that I find that men always think they have to be superheroes and they feel like they don't have to cry. But then I also feel like when men don't cry, don't have emotions, that's why the suicide rate is so high on men because they keep everything inside. What is your take on the emotion of a man?
You
wanna
want
take
the
that?
ball?
Oh,
You
he
want
said,
it?
he
You want
said
the
well,
ball?
I want it. Sure, I take it. I can't speak on suicide rates, but I will speak on about emotions. A lot of men do have it bottled up, and a lot of men keep that way because of how current society treats us and Western culture. That we need to be so tough and not show emotions
Mm-hmm.
or show our feelings. But what we got it wrong is if we read about Jesus and about how he dealt with even the people who tried to kill him, he remained strong,
Mm-hmm.
and yet he was actually vulnerable in showing that his feelings
Mm-hmm.
and crying and caring for those who were sick, shut in, and the poorest of the poor. And so it is okay for us to show our vulnerability. But I believe Toby was right. We have to be wise or strategic in how we deal with our emotions uh, around certain people, because everyone can't handle that. You're not going to do that in a public format,
Right.
and that inner circle, which is your wife or your mom or that immediate family, can deal with that emotion because you're there day in and day out. Your coworkers who might be there one week and gone the next week
Mm-hmm.
are not going to be able to handle that kind of vulnerability in the workplace.
Right. Does that help, Carol?
Excuse me, sir. My name is Louise.
Okay, Miss Louise, I apologize. Does that help?
That does help. Yeah. And I do agree with everything that you have said. Um, but I also think that the reason men don't show emotion in a lot of instances is because they don't want to show their weakness when they
Mm-hmm.
have to always be a leader. You agree?
Yes, I agree because I come from a society where the man, no matter what, is the head, and he is not permitted to show emotions in the middle of a crisis or either good or bad. I was just talking about that earlier in the earlier segment. Excuse me, in the first half of the show, I was just talking about that. How I come from a culture where we don't cry. The men don't cry, but it's okay for the women and the little children to cry because that's their way of training us to be resilient on matters that affect the family. It could be either finances, it could be maybe mental health issues with the family, with someone in the family, or what have you. We're trained not to show emotion. And I used to go back and forth with my parents on that. How am I? Isn't being showing emotions part of being human? That's part of being human. Because if you don't show emotion, it's like okay, it's like you pretty much a walking dead. Like you're dead inside. How do you how do you show your emotion? I mean, emotions doesn't necessarily have to be tears, but like James has said earlier, vulnerability. You know, um, you have to know how to know who to show your vulnerabilities with. Like I said earlier, your wife, your spouse, or your parents, your mom or dad. Those are like the deeper, like the people who are really in your inner circle that you can show your vulnerabilities with, because not everyone in society is going to accept your vulnerability. Not everyone. So I could say maybe give or take. Maybe if we did a pool of or we did a vote, I think it'll be close to 50-50. Because no, I don't want to see you crying around me, man. Or please don't cry around me. Please go somewhere. Just you know. And that's the reason why, to go back to what you said earlier, we keep it inside, and then we lash out by either going around killing people, and then they kill themselves, because we don't have anyone that we could trust to share something like that with, or
Right.
what our issues
Right.
are.
Right. That makes sense.
So,
That makes sense. I appreciate you answering my phone call.
yes, Miss Louise.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. We thank the caller for calling and their question being answered. I was saying about I have 3 superheroes. Now, out of these 3, who would you identify with? The Incredible Hulk, Iron Man, or Spider-Man?
Iron Man.
Why Iron Man?
Iron Man, Tony Stark, a.k.a. Tony Stark, he's a corporate bureaucrat. And he doesn't really, people really don't know who he is, so he's forced to switch to Iron Man. Maybe things are at stake, life is at stake, something's at stake, and that Iron Man comes out. But if he's not Iron Man, when he's not Iron Man, he's Tony Stark. And Tony Stark, he sells weapons for a living. He sells weapons, he sells military equipment, and he keeps his emotions in check because he's trying to get contracts, sign deals and stuff. But if it's things that's going to affect the world, then he changes gears. I can relate to that.
You can relate to him.
I can relate to that. So to answer your question, yes, I can relate to that, because I've had situations where, even though I'm at my age I am right now, I still have the big kid inside of me. I still play video games. I still play Madden. I still do stuff like that. I still have to work. And then my passion, which is writing and acting, I can switch. I can just switch. I can turn off the bureaucratic Tobie and then switch to work, like switch to what I love to do.
Okay.
So I hope that answers the question, but
I was trying to wait till you finish.
I'm Iron Man.
Okay. So you would pick Iron Man.
Yes, sir.
But what if I told you that Iron Man, his emotion is really of arrogance, and you see it play out in his with all that brilliance of his arrogance, walking around like he could not be touched, or he could not, with all of his genius, he walks so arrogant that he wants control of everything. He wants to do everything, and everything is beneath him unless he decides it's too much.
Iron Man.
Okay, and it's not to get into a Marvel thing, but it's to look at his emotion, and you see it play out in all of his movies, and even until you get to Endgame, and then he realizes that with all that ability,
he's still human.
No, he had to be willing, to sacrifice
his life,
which in the beginning when we see him, how did he become Iron Man? Because of his arrogance. From the very start, it was identified. What did he do? He got drunk. He didn't show up on time for things. He thought he was so brilliant, this, that, and the other.
But he was covering something up, though.
Okay, so he was covering something
up.
His arrogance, right? Okay, so if he's covering up his arrogance, and this is his, like, what we say, almost like his alter ego. This is his emotion that really has identified him from the very onslaught, from his first movie all the way to the end, right? Until he sacrificed. And he realized that his ability was not given with all his genius to himself, but it was supposed to be shared with the world. I know you didn't see that coming.
I didn't see that.
I know you didn't see that coming.
I didn't see that coming.
So I would say for myself, probably I would be the Incredible Hulk, and that was to identify anger.
Okay.
And anger doesn't always have to lash out and tear up stuff, but we know Hulk did.
Yeah.
Until Bruce Banner comes back and Bruce like, look at all this damage.
Look at this. Look at all the damage I did.
Look at all the damage I did.
Right.
And so,
and our producer obviously is Hulk, as you can see, because he's flexing behind the camera.
See, he doesn't realize that doing that type of damage, you can do it without tearing up stuff and anger, but you can break up relationships because of your anger. Woo, look at that.
We got the breeze coming.
So we looked at that particular situation. So I said that because in my early years I was that way because I did not know how to respond and deal with it. That relationships can be broken up that way, not knowing how to deal with your anger. So I would say that I was at that particular time, I was Hulk. And this is the thing. My dad loves that, right? So he thinks breaking up stuff, the macho thing, showing all your strength is not wise for Hulk, right?
No.
But it's not until Banner comes back and has to solve the issue that Hulk has destroyed so much.
You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
Right. So none of us like each other when we're angry. Yeah. So that was my question to you was which one were you? And you said, okay, I like Stark. You know, I like
Tony Stark.
Right. So and I started off by saying everyone has DC hero has an alter ego, and who they are when he's walking around, you know, Stark Enterprise is this very arrogant owner who creates stuff, who's a genius, right? But he
could the arrogance be a form of weakness?
Yes, I would dare say, yeah. Yeah. And so if you don't realize that your emotions is coming out in that particular individual, we look at like, oh, that's great. That's great. No, it's really not. And we have to understand. I'm putting this in context because a lot of us see movies, and a lot of us have lives that we see some parallel to it to understand. Now I can see because now, when you mentioned he was I see that coming out. He was like that from the very start. And that's what got him that heart in that situation, that he had to use his creative genius to try to repair something that shouldn't have happened, but it happened because he did things that he shouldn't have.
Now you're going to make me go watch Iron Man again.
So I just used that, and if you'd have picked Spider-Man, it would have been...
Spider-Man is tricky.
Well, it is, but empathy.
Empathy.
Right. Because he decided that he always wanted to play the neutral game, right? So in the very beginning, we see what happened to him, and when he got his power, and what happened to his Uncle Ben.
Right.
Remember when he did not stop?
He didn't. Yeah.
He did not stop. That man was the same man who did what he did. When you stand by and do nothing, or try to be neutral and say, I don't want to be bad or good. I just don't want to. I don't want to be involved.
Yeah.
I'm just here.
I'm just here.
Right. So his by not doing something overwhelmed his sense of emotion that he caused what happened to Uncle Ben because he could have did something.
You could have done something about it
Right. From the very beginning.
from the very beginning.
Right.
And that made him.
Which would cause us a whole lot of issues later.
Mm-hmm.
And so same thing with Iron Man. If you would have dealt with it earlier, then it always
You won't be arrogant.
No, well, not necessarily. Oh, yeah, you won't be arrogant, but you won't have to deal with a situation that's going to cost you more than you want to pay.
And he'll show more empathy.
I would hope you would show more sympathy.
I think
and
Tony
emotion.
Stark would show more empathy.
Yeah.
He would. And he showed the human side of him in Endgame.
Yeah. Well, he figured it out.
Mm-hmm. He
With
figured
all
it
that
out.
great talent, I have to be willing to share it with the world and sacrifice.
Right.
And not just save.
And he was the leader. He was the leader of the Avengers, whether we like it or not. I've always had disputes, friendly disputes with people, but no, he wasn't the leader of the Avengers. Not really. He was just arrogant. Bruce Banner, the Hulk, was the leader, and I've had situations where someone said Thor was the leader. I said no.
Not
Tony
Captain
Stark.
America?
No, not Captain America. Someone said Captain America. So I think that's the reason why. Not to go off track here, but real quick, that's the reason why Tony Stark and Captain America were always, there was slight friction between them both. Remember Civil War? There's
But
friction
one was
between them both.
but one was willing to sacrifice for the whole, and the other one wanted control. Once again, arrogance.
Tony Stark wanted control.
Wanted
Yeah.
control.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the military got so involved.
Yeah.
He likes the authority.
He wants
likes
the authority.
control. He
Yep.
likes the control.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to switch gears, and we're going to go into something that we're going to do every time we come on. We're going to do it in the beginning. And this is my fault here about couples. And we're going to engage in a little segment about couples because relationships are important. And a lot of us who have, for a better word, been either married or in and out of relationships. And a lot of us don't handle them very well, or we don't take in information to make wise choices, especially if we're being tested again in life with a different relationship, but ended up with the same result. And there was a couple here that I'm reading about, and they had a thing where they would get in, sort of like in competition, like performance-oriented marriage, where there are constantly correcting one another, doing more things, and like wanting that approval. Like, I want to, where you might start off, and we might say it's improvement, but if you are trying to change someone fully by the way, and I don't really like to use that about dressing, but sometimes it might be someone's dressing habits. It might be someone's etiquette, or someone's just small things like financial habits. All these things, and it's to compete or to challenge one another to get better. Are we making a challenge for one another, or are we trying to change one another? Or
are we trying to motivate each other?
And that's the thing.
Because people can use it as a form of motivation.
Right. They can.
Okay. Maybe make it a friendly competition.
Yeah, but my question is,
but there's a fine line.
Okay.
Okay, I wanted to drop that in there. There's a fine line. There's a fine line. Like, my spouse has taught me, baby, there's no need for us to compete because it's coming into the same pot at the end of the day. When
Okay.
I win, you win. When you win, I win.
But everyone doesn't see it that way. And so
unfortunately, and that is why marriages, relationships fail.
right. Is it failing because of when we do performance based, let's say a performance based marriage, what did that kind of environment look like? Does it look like I'm competing against you in the professional level, on what type of level? I mean, because I've seen people care a lot, but emotionally they look like they're detached because it's always it's not a grace driven. It's a motivation to perform. Everything from the bedroom to the professional to sports or what have you, it's all based on performance. And after a while, like all things, it gets worn down. So my question is, when do we stop the performance and have more grace?
And this is just coming from me, we stop when we are ready to accept who your spouse is, accept each other for who we are.
Okay, but the problem. Well, I won't say the problem.
The challenge.
I had to say time out because really, I'm like, where do we love the person that we married and now we want to change them?
Well,
okay.
I don't want to change.
You don't want to change?
No, I don't want to change. And if she can hear me right now, I hope she's hearing me. I don't want to change.
Change is inevitable. But go
ahead.
Well,
I don't want to use change. Maybe make it a little subtle. Modify.
Okay.
Okay, we said we can
modify.
modify. I don't want to say change. Change is a strong word for couples out there. Don't stop. We had a topic. Stop trying to change me.
Yeah, stop trying to change me.
Stop trying to change me. I said, no, baby, I don't want to change. I just want to modify it a little bit.
Modify it a little bit.
Just a little bit. It's kind of like you raise the volume. It's so loud. It's booming, booming, booming. You still and you can hear everything someone is saying. But now, I don't want to change it now. I want to reduce the volume a little bit. I still want to listen. That's modifying.
Okay. So before we go, this
It looks like there's a lightning coming.
Okay.
We got a caller. Caller, are you there?
I am here. How are you doing?
We are well. How are you doing?
How are you?
I am doing wonderful. Well, first I want to say you guys' show is great.
Thank you.
But I have a question for Mr. Tobie. And he just said that you have to accept your spouse for who they are. But tell him, is he's okay with the fact that his spouse is always right?
Ooh. Is he if his spouse is always right, then what?
Can he live with that? Because even though we're not in competition and we know that, competition, is not supposed to be in a relationship, but will he be okay if 9 times out of 10 his spouse is always righter than he is?
That's a high percentage.
That is a high percentage, 9 times out of 10.
Hypothetical.
Oh, hypothetical.
Well, you know what? I'm going to keep the answer very short and sweet. If she's always right, that doesn't mean I failed. It means that I'm learning.
Absolutely.
That means that I'm learning from that person. I'm learning.
He must have been listening to the show.
I like that, baby.
Oh, I knew that voice was familiar.
I like that, baby.
So
Thank you
learning
so much.
because it could flip. where there are things that I know that she doesn't know,
Right.
and she'll use it as a learning tool.
Right.
Absolutely.
Let me say this, and I learned this a few weeks ago, and it just blew my mind. And they came with, you should always be collecting data on your spouse, because if change is coming inevitably, you should always want to know how are they changing and what can I do to make it better.
Absolutely.
Well, not necessarily collecting data, because that's what we do on a daily basis.
Exactly. Exactly. You are.
But instead of me collecting data,
Right?
because I don't want to keep track like that.
You are,
because
though.
I have to trust. But what I will do instead of collecting data is I would rather do a couples check-in.
Okay.
I would do a couples
What?
check-in.
What's
like
that?
when I say
Well,
couples check-in. Yes, ma'am.
I would say collecting data is great. And the reason why I say collecting data is great is not to collect data to pretty much keep up with that person. It's just collecting data so we can be able to learn each other and know if we made a mistake or if we're not making a mistake, what not to do or what to do. But to also learn your spouse, and collecting data can be a great thing, because I would know, like, maybe he don't like me if I wear rollers, hair rollers to bed, which I don't. He likes me when I come to bed with nice lingerie. So if I collect that data and I remember what he tells me he like or maybe he doesn't like, or if we had an argument or a disagreement, then that would help us, because I think the biggest thing in relationship is communication. So I think every time you grow, when you do collect data, and even with, your spouse being right or wrong, it's not about right or wrong. It's just really about communicating what you like and what you don't like. Does that make sense?
Okay, now looking at it from that standpoint, then I will concur with you that collecting data will be essential. Yes, I went back on what I said. Because
absolutely, that's from dating a smart IT guy.
From that perspective, because collecting data sometimes.
I don't want
to use it.
But she's saying you really do need to use it, and I'll tell you why.
Absolutely.
Because whenever you want to do something for me, you will know exactly what I like to do. You know exactly what I want to do.
Okay.
When you want to go buy me some lingerie or you want to buy me some clothes, you know exactly my style. You know I go shopping for my wife or my daughters. I know all their styles. Or my sons. You know why? Because I'm constantly collecting generation by building what you have already.
Okay. See, I'm the co-host, but I still learn. I'm learning on the show. I'm learning.
Look, and I can tell you right now, Mr. Tobie does collect data, right? Because he once got perfume at CVS. And I love perfume.
God.
I love very expensive perfume.
Oh, my gosh.
So believe me, he collects that data to know that I will never buy my spouse CVS perfume.
Oh, my God. No, you didn't. Oh,
I
wow.
did. I love you.
Wow.
But you guys have a great show. I just want to tune in. You guys are doing an amazing job. This is coming from a 7-year radio host herself. You guys are doing an amazing job, and you guys are really giving us the mind of a man. And it is amazing to pick your brains and really see what you guys are thinking. So thank you so much for taking my call. I really appreciate it.
We appreciate you.
We appreciate you.
And good job, handsome in the pink.
Thank
wink,
you.
wink.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
At least we know he's securing his manhood.
Yeah. Yep.
It's okay to wear pink, gentlemen.
Yep.
I might wear mine the next time we're on the show, I might have to wear my pink.
Yep. I'm secure.
Yeah.
Okay. We got one more caller coming through.
Hi, I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so this is Elder Jones' wife, Carolyn Jones.
Oh. I'm teasing you.
So you collect a lot of data on your wife. If your wife collects data on you, how should she apply that data to you? And this is even for you, Tobie. When the data is applied to you, and this may create an emotion of anger, how should you handle that as a man?
Okay.
So, first question, Elder Jones, about the data that the woman collected on you.
Okay, so if I'm collecting data, what is it?
I'm collecting data on you.
Okay.
And data changes every day. New things apply, new things happen. It can be updated, it can be decreased, it can have a lot of different ups and downs in that data and where it's at. How does a female apply that data to you?
Okay, so if she's my wife who's collecting data on me, when it comes to me exactly, using it so wise as I'm using an example, maybe gifts, maybe certain foods that I used to like, I don't like anymore. My thing that you do very well is normally if it's a surprise, because I'm learning that my wife, she likes to surprise. I was one who don't like surprises, and so I try to figure things out before I get the surprise. But I think I would say before then I had to take notice and say she enjoys doing that where I didn't, and that comes from my past, from the way my parents raised me. But I would say that take that data, and a lot of times you're good at communication, where
I'm just as guilty.
I was not guilty. I am guilty of not being a good communicator as I should be.
I'm just as guilty.
And so when communicating, I like to hear, and I'm guilty of something else. When I hear it, I might not like I might not like the answers or the results, but what I will do is filter them, especially through the word of God, and be obedient and know how to ask for what I was dealing with was about grace, or ask for forgiveness for me not complying, or either my emotions or my mood have affected the atmosphere with what the data that they are collecting on me to do. And I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Yeah, that was good. We are renewing our vows, 25 years of being together. What do you think have you been collecting data on me the whole time, and that has been applied, and that's how we have had a longevity of a relationship?
Wow. I would say yes and no, and not totally. We have a lot of children, and I had a military job, so it was a lot of there's a whole lot of data there that I was collecting. But I think since now I am somewhat of an empty nester, that I'm learning my spouse all over, my wife, in a new way. Things have changed, and in that, my honor to God was more committed to Him than it was to actually more so next my spouse, because I had to see Him and my spouse straight through her, because I had a problem with one of my emotions, and one of them was negativity. And because of my parents, everything was negative. So I proceed with negativity, and normally that was my first response, was negativity. Where her first response was always positive, that God makes a way, and that her faith operated. So I honored that commitment through God. That's how I was able to hang on for those 25 years.
Amen. I appreciate that. Thank you so
Tobie,
much,
I
sir.
think you're up next. Can I breathe?
Okay, I'm gonna make this quick
Yes.
because our producer's giving us signals. Um, I've been through a lot this past 7 years. Actually, will be 7 years with me and Money together, and we've been through highs and lows. And I have to admit, Money, my fiance, collected a ton of data, and the data that she collected from me about me, for the most part, to be honest, was negative data. But what Money did with the data, instead of her just dumping the data and walking away from me, she flipped the data into positive data. It went from red to green. Okay, she flipped it.
Good.
Same thing I did with her as well. There was data that I'm like, I don't know if I can deal with this. I don't know if I could deal with this. I'm more chill, more laid back and chill. And she says that she is out. She's very vocal.
Right.
She's very vocal and she's extra, and she'll admit that she's extra too. But I'm like, I don't know, Lord. I said, Lord, I asked for something, and He gave me God. I said, God gave me what I wanted and then some. That's her. That then some. That's her. Also, and then some. So we feed off each other. And I'm really grateful for that. I flipped the negative data. I flipped it into positive data on her side. We both did it for each other. That's why we're still here, on the verge of getting married. So, and I'm really grateful for her. And and our goal now is to use our relationship as a template to help others.
Amen. Amen.
So,
and that's what we all should be doing.
Yep.
So before we close, our topic for couples was grace. So this week is, what can you do today to make your marriage a grace-filled relationship and not a performance-orientated one? And I think that's always going to be a good challenge, especially for young couples. For couples who are who have some longevity, our longevity is not only an example and not only the grace that God extends to us, but we need to say thank you for Him being in that relationship. Because without Him in the relationship, your relationship won't last. It's just point blank.
Yep.
If you start off in a carnal mindset, then that's how you're going to end up.
Yep.
And so if He's not in the midst of that, then you're going to have a hard way to go. It is time for us to close. We thank you. We appreciate you. And this last thing, the reason why you have someone opposite of you as a couple is to say this. They need to see your blind side, where you're weak at, and you need to see theirs. Because if they taking in data and they see your weakness, you need to also see theirs and to take into account their that part of the relationship to build them up. So we thank you. We appreciate you. Until we see you again. Blessings to all of you.
Thanks for tuning in.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Mine.